Hello, I'm Charles Burke. With Halloween approaching, I decided to pull an old recording out of my archives, dust it off, and share it once again. The material you'll hear was recorded during a small private session I presented as a Friday the 13th teleseminar a few years back. The information and mindset contained here remain very relevant in today's world. During this seminar, we talked about good luck and how you can have more of it. Specifically, how to change things around you so that your luck automatically changes for the better. With all the false information and even superstition connected with the subject of luck, I believe the 13th was an excellent date to hold this particular seminar. I call this presentation, If You So Choose. As the seminar proceeds, I think you'll see why I gave it this title. Now, sit back, relax, and learn how easy it'll be for you to improve the luck in your life.
Today, we're going to learn about 6 things. 1, the biggest obstacle to good luck. 2, why success may not work the way you've been taught to think. 3, who Lady Luck always loves. 4, how to recognize the disguises of luck. 5, where luck hides out. And 6, how you can always find good luck in bad times. Now, what I'm sharing here is a model of reality and how reality works. You may find it useful. You know, everybody understands what the word luck means. When we say luck, we just know. It's like a cultural icon. If we look in the dictionary, we find that it's used as a noun and as a verb. As a noun, we say it's a force that brings good fortune or adversity. Now, that's not really very useful. What they're saying is luck is what causes good luck or bad luck. So the next definition is luck is the events or circumstances that operate for or against an individual. Okay, that's a little more useful. And if we use luck as a verb, we say we lucked into something, or we lucked out and had a wonderful day. We never use, hey, I lucked out and had a terrible time. We never use it in a negative sense that way. So the word luck in general is a positive word, but it's a vague word. Still, people, they're pretty sure when they run into bad luck or good luck, they're pretty sure they know which is which. Well, today I've got some bad news and I've got some good news. The bad news is there's no such thing as luck. The good news is there's something better. Now, I've done quite a few interviews with successful people, and in the course of the interview I often ask them just straight out if they believe in luck, and almost to a man they'll say they don't. No, they don't believe in luck. But then we keep talking and they start telling these amazing stories of how things just come to them at just the right time. If they need an investor, that investor somehow just walks in the door at just the right time. Or they need a piece of information, or they need to meet somebody. And that just shows up in their life. And they talk about synchronicity and serendipity. Well, folks, those are just $10 words for luck, but they don't believe in luck. And when those amazing things happen, most people will say, wow, they are so lucky. So, for ease of communication, I don't use the big $10 words. I use the word everybody else uses. I call it luck, because when I say luck, people have a general idea of what I mean. Okay, my definition of luck is a little different from other people's. This happens all the time anyway. For example, take the word shopping. Are there any husbands and wives who really agree on what shopping means? Or take politicians. You know, there's a big difference what they think peace means. Or if you stop people on the street and you ask them, what does rich mean? You'll get a big, wide variation. In fact, just the people here, if we were to ask each one of us, what does rich mean? We'd probably get some different definitions. Our definition varies a little bit, but that's okay. We still pretty much know what we're talking about when we say luck. Still, successful people don't believe in luck. And the reason is because the common definition of luck implies a random universe where stuff just happens. Successful people don't believe in a random universe. They believe that things happen as a cause and an effect. For example, there are ways to think that will cause events to happen. They believe that. You and I believe that. Sometimes we call this positive thinking. But what are some other names for this besides positive thinking? Anybody got any suggestions?
Expectations?
Yeah, expectations, absolutely. What else?
Feelings?
Feelings, Your feelings can cause results in your life.
Your attitude. Your attitude.
Yes, your attitudes. Your attitudes are your
beliefs.
Your beliefs. And all of these things have an impact. And the common definition of luck doesn't really take any of those into account. If you believe in random luck, then you believe that the whole universe is random and that there is no connection between cause and effect. Now, people believe in a physical cause and effect. If you walk up to somebody with a hat pin, stick it in them, you're going to get a loud voice. If you take a hammer and you walk up to glass and you hit it, you're going to get a lot of little pieces of glass. Now, people believe in that kind of cause and effect. But your thinking cause events to happen? Well, let's go into that a little bit. When most people think of luck, they don't think of it as a cause and effect phenomenon. The attitude is, man, how can a feeble little non-physical thought do anything? It appears that the biggest obstacle to having good luck is believing in luck. Luck, by common definition, is more or less blind. Blind luck. Maybe you've heard the term. So why do people believe in blind luck? Well, this is the common attitude. We're taught this from the time we're little. Really, people sort of have to believe in blind luck. You know, if every event is caused by thoughts, then all my crappy luck is from, oh no, I can't admit that. It's a kind of a denial. It's a refusal to change thoughts because that would be something I wasn't taught how to do. However, if anything happens that you don't like, or if anything happens that you do like, either way, you're the author, and you have full authority to change it. Now, we're going to go into this a little deeper later. Right now, I'm just covering the basic idea of what we're going to cover. Now, we've been told a lot of different ways how we can change events, how we can change the things that happen in our lives. But, you know, a lot of times we do these and things don't change. Has anybody ever had that happen?
Yeah.
I certainly have. In fact, the first part of my life, for many years, I read the positive thinking books and the help yourself books, but all the crappy stuff just kept right on happening, no matter how many books I read. You see, just knowing about it is not the same thing as being able to do it. I may read a book on how to play the violin, but if I never pick up a violin until one day I go to Carnegie Hall and I tell people, I know everything about playing a violin. So they invite me. I stand in front of the crowd. It's the first time I've ever had a violin in my hands. And what's my result going to be, likely?
Charles?
Yes.
There is a concept that confuses me sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
I see a lot of people who hold negative attitudes and by all standards are planting seeds of bad things to happen, and yet they are seemingly lucky. They get good stuff coming to their lives, they get money, and they have apparently good relationships, and yet personally they are very negative people.
Okay. We're going to go into that. This is part of what I'll be talking about. That is a mystery, isn't it? I have some really nasty people. They don't like other people, or they don't seem to think positive at all. And yet, somehow, they're rich, they're successful, good things happen for them. They just fall into one good luck event after another. This is really puzzling. And this was one of the things that used to really frost my nose. How can it possibly be true when stuff like that happens? Okay, we're going to talk about that. And if I get to the end and I haven't quite answered your question, I hope you'll bring this up again. Okay?
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Now, when I was young, I was just stumbling I spent a lot of time running face first into walls and stumbling off the road into the ditches and stepping in holes and hurting myself. This happened a lot, and I just didn't know why life hated me so bad. Lady Luck really had it in for me, buddy. But through all those years, all of that trial and error, I learned a lot of stuff. Now, lousy stuff still happens. Unexpected stuff still happens. And I'll tell you the truth here now. I don't know a single self-help writer or speaker whose life is perfectly smooth and predictable. They get unexpected stuff too, let me tell you. This is one of the things most of them won't talk about. But it's true. But we're going to talk about it today, and we're going to talk about what you can do even when unexpected stuff happens to you. Let me tell you about the kind of luck I'm talking about, what I call good luck. Now, you probably know that I have been writing about EFT now and then in the newsletter. I give a little introductory lecture. But the man who actually developed it, his name is Gary Craig, and it's a wonderful system of tapping on the acupuncture points. For those who are listening and may not be familiar with it, you tap on certain acupuncture points, and phobias and fears and emotional pains and physical pains can just simply disappear. Well, Gary Craig, I was so interested in this after I got into it that I ordered out his 40 or 42 videotapes, and I was just fascinated by this. I just played them over and over. And I kept thinking, man, I'd really like to interview Gary Craig. This guy is fascinating. This whole thing is fascinating. I'd like to get into the way he thinks. I'd really like to interview him. But I didn't know him. I didn't have any introduction. And I didn't call him. I didn't send him an email. But for 3 or 4 weeks, I was thinking, I'd really like to interview this guy. One day the phone rings, my wife picks it up, she turns around and says, it's Gary Craig, he wants to speak with you. Just out of nowhere, this guy calls me. He doesn't know from Adam's house cat, but it turns out that he's putting all of his videotapes, changing them over to CD-ROMs. He asked me, if I send you a CD-ROM, will you check it out on a Japanese computer and see if it runs? Yeah, I'd love to help. Now, he had a need, and I had a need. We both had desires, and somewhere in the higher mind, his need and my need, his desire and my desire, they connected. And so out of nowhere, he called me. Did I get my interview? Yep, you bet I did. Now, that's the kind of luck I'm talking about. And that's the kind of event that successful people call synchronicity, because they don't like to call it luck. I don't mind calling it luck. It's just fine. This kind of event is much, much more useful than random events. It's related. It's connected to what you're doing. Has anybody ever had that kind of a good luck event, what the successful people call synchronicity?
Yeah, but it involved illnesses that were discovered through a very seemingly random, but later on, quite ordered procedures.
Uh-huh.
When looking back, I realized that things were falling in place for a reason.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Hindsight can really clear up a lot of things. Unfortunately, we'll have to live life forward. We hear about people who find money on the street all the time. Not too long ago, my wife and I were coming out of the train station, and we saw a wallet on the ground. We picked it up. There was some money inside and some lottery tickets, but there was no identification. So we took it into the train station, gave it to the station master, and told him, just if somebody comes back and claims this, we'd like to see that they get it. Well, here in Japan, They are the most organized people on earth. We thought we'd just drop it off at the window like you would a lost umbrella or a lost glove, you know. They took our name, our address, our phone number. 6 months later, we'd completely forgotten about it. Suddenly, we got a phone call. Nobody ever claimed that wallet. It's yours. There was about $350 in it. The lottery tickets, now there was one ticket that won. It was about 50 yen. It wasn't much, but hey, you don't have to win big to win. So that was just a piece of random luck. Or was it? I'll never know. I'll never know what thought that may or may not have been connected to. But I do know that that's more money than most people ever find on the street in an entire lifetime. Other people, they're always finding a parking spot. They're going to a store, and instead of driving round and round and round, there's one always right there, just real close in front. This is luck. Is it random? Well, if it happens over and over, it can't possibly be random. But in general, everybody has a kind of a native ratio, a natural ratio between their bad luck and their good luck. What would you say your natural ratio is on a typical day?
On a typical day?
Mm-hmm.
Mine's less than 50-50. My son-in-law, on the other hand, will get a parking spot every time, right in front.
Mm-hmm.
He expects it.
Uh-huh. Now, your son-in-law may be a wonderful person, or he may be an awful person. I don't know your son-in-law, but he expects it.
He expects it.
Uh-huh.
Just drives right up there to the front.
Uh-huh. And gosh, there it is. Just
And
almost every time.
Every time.
Mm-hmm. And
now, though he's not a horrible person.
That's good. Anybody else? What's your typical day-to-day ratio?
I don't think about that. That's a problem.
Uh-huh. Yeah, most of us don't. We're not aware.
I don't
We just
quantify it.
Yeah, just if you had to guess right now, what would you say? 50-50, 60-40?
I'll say 70% good.
Okay, that's good.
30% adverse.
Mm-hmm. Now, some people are lucky in one. You know, have you ever heard the phrase, lucky at cards, unlucky at love? Luck seems to be selective. And we have just hit on the reason why luck or success seems to be selective. The son-in-law who just drives up and finds a parking spot because he expects to. That's the way his reality is shaped. And he would be shocked if it were any other way. It's just unthinkable to him.
That's true.
And Hector, you mentioned some people are just very negative people, but they're always having good luck. I think we're starting to get close to the reason for that. Luck is not a broadband thing. It's a very narrow thing. It comes like colors. We say color and we mean all the colors. We say spectrum and we mean all the colors. But if we say green, that's a much more narrow band. If we say red, that's a much narrower band than just saying colors. So when we say luck, that's like saying colors. When we say finding a parking spot every time, that's like saying green. So luck can be selective, certain areas. Somebody can always have wonderful business deals going. They just run into one good business deal after another, but they have awful health, or they have unhappy home life. Now, what we're going to try to do today is define a way so that you can broaden out your luck and have it apply across the whole spectrum instead of just in certain selected areas, so that you can, if you have a business, you can have more success come to you with that. If you want a better love life, or a better family life, or better in-law relations, you can add that in without taking away anything else. Because you don't really have to make a choice except I choose to have this, if you so choose. Now, whatever your ratio is, it's a result of the thoughts you think, your expectations, the way you believe things ought to be. It's like planting seeds. If you plant seeds for corn, you're probably not going to get cotton. If you plant seeds for oaks, you're probably not going to get cherry trees. That's just the way reality seems to work. But we don't know most of the time that we're planting seeds. That's the big trick. We don't think about all those seeds we're planting. There are a lot of different metaphors you can use. One of them is planting seeds. One of them is what you expect is what you get. What you send out is what you get back. But basically, they're all a matter of thinking and getting. As you sow, so shall you reap, and so on. But how does it work in real life? How can it work? A thought is just an intangible thing, just a little waveform in your brain. There's just barely enough electricity or current passing. You can measure it, but you can't run an electric train with it.
Charles?
Yes.
Would it be fair to include feelings with thoughts? Because a lot of times it's not a thought what defines an event or a trend, but a feeling, as we said before.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Let me tell you a little story that happened to me years ago. I was on the way over to visit my girlfriend, and I had borrowed my friend's car. It was a cold, rainy night, and I was really scared that I was going to wreck my friend's car. I had wrecked my car and didn't have one, so I borrowed his. And he was very brave to loan it to me. But all the way over, it was rainy and dark and cold, and it was hard to see, and his defroster didn't work very well. But the whole time, I had been reading about positive thinking, so all the way I was saying to myself, safety, 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 safety. So I was thinking positive. I reached her house, nice and safe, and I swung through an empty parking lot to turn around and go back and park in front of her house. Son of a gun, somebody left a light pole right in the middle of that empty parking lot. Safety, safety, bam! I ran into that light pole, smashed his car, smashed the radiator, and wouldn't run. Banged my head on the steering wheel. All the time I was thinking safety, I had this churning knot in my gut, and this feeling was scared, 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 even though I was saying safety, safety, safety. So absolutely, feelings are a big, big component. They may be the biggest component. Yeah.
A lot of times we deceive ourselves into believing that because we think something, that's the direction we're taking, when the feeling is totally in contradiction with the thought.
Yeah. Some people call those add-ons. Some people call them self-sabotage. But basically what it is, my affirmation was safety, but my real affirmation, the one I was really doing, was scared, danger, scared, crash.
And that brings a point that changing thoughts may seem to be easier than changing feelings. I have a very hard time changing a feeling.
The universe is not mechanical. The 19th century model of the universe was like a giant machine or a clock. You know where all the gears and the wheels are, and everything is predictable. It's all predetermined. But early in the 20th century, mankind started developing a new model of reality. It was very strange and far more flexible. You've heard of quantum theory and quantum mechanics, and they started dealing with reality in terms of probability and possibility. Previously, probability was what controlled everything, we thought. But then we found out that there's a difference, and probability is a math treatment. It projects the future from the past. We're creatures of habit, so this works fairly well, but possibility is totally different. It's open-ended and anything is possible. What happened yesterday doesn't really have anything to do with what's possible today. It'll tell us what's probable today, maybe, but not what's possible. And with possibility, you don't have to consider deeply ingrained habits. We're totally free potentially free. But we still have to deal with habits, like our feelings. A few years ago, I heard an interview by Tony Robbins. He interviewed Deepak Chopra. And Chopra used the term quantum soup. He was talking about every possible, conceivable, potential event is a discrete event. It's not connected to anything else. And every possible potential event is sloshing around in this slurry, this quantum soup. Can anybody here explain quantum physics in 2 or 3 sentences? I can't. But I can tell you this, from what I've read, that there are some very, very unusual, very strange characteristics down at the subatomic level. For example, if 2 photons ever bounce against each other and they're connected, then forever after they will spin in the same direction. They'll spin simultaneously. Even after they part, they go their separate ways. If you do something to particle A to change its spin, you'll find that particle B, way over on the other side of the room, has changed its spin also. Now, this is spooky stuff. A lot of people had trouble believing this at first. But it happens. It happens all the time. And they found that light can behave either as a wave in some circumstances, or it behaves as particles in other circumstances. And when you set up an experiment to observe what light does under different circumstances, you have to choose whether you're going to observe the waves or the particles. And your choosing determines how light is going to behave in that experiment. Apparently, according to them, observing changes the experiment, changes the results. Well, what is meditation and affirmations and visualizing? What is that but observing potential events? When you begin observing them, that changes them. And it makes them more probable. It attracts them to you. There's a connection then between that event and you. The process of living, we've always thought of it as a path. Time is a path, and we travel along this path in an uninterrupted flow. In fact, at one time I used the illustration that when you make a choice, you can either turn left or right or face straight ahead. At that point, at that moment when you make a choice, you split off, and your path in your reality takes the one maybe where you turn left. But there's also the other 2 paths, where you face straight ahead or you turn right. Now, those 2 didn't come into being. Or did they? According to the quantum soup idea, they do exist, they did happen, but they are happening in some other universe. This is getting into some pretty flighty, fanciful stuff, parallel universes and alternate realities and stuff. But all we really need to know is we have a bigger, way bigger choice than we think we do. If our path seems to be taking us straight to poverty, it doesn't necessarily have to. If every event is sloshing around in quantum soup, then basically we're not on a road moving forward. We're more like a fish in water. We can actually swim this way and that. We can even swim backwards. Very strange stuff. But I'm not doing this because I want you to memorize this theory. This is just to open up your imagination to new possibilities. Now, what's all this got to do with luck? Anybody care to venture a guess?
We can change the nature of our choices and change the nature of the possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the things that can happen don't necessarily have to be tightly connected by probability. They can be improbable things, like Gary Craig calling me, a guy he doesn't know, just because I live in Japan, just because I bought his set of tapes, and he needed something, and I needed something. That's a very, very improbable connection. But it was good enough to get a phone call and an interview. It worked for us. So this is what I'm talking about, this kind of luck. Let's say you start creating new, more pleasing events. Let's say you catch on to this. Man, this is great stuff. Now I understand. And all sorts of new, great things come to you. A new business partner walks up and says, hey, I like your set of skills. Let's make a business together. I'll put all the money in. And all your friends are going to say, wow, was that lucky? You'll begin to have things like people you'd like to know may, for some reason, out of nowhere, just call you. People are going to say, wow, was that great luck? Out of the blue, out of nowhere. People are going to call it luck. You'll know it was not, but what else are you going to call it? Synchronicity is just a bigger word for luck. Anyway, you're in a custom ordering business. You're ordering events out of this huge, huge inventory. Now, you can say it's coming from the universe, or God, or higher self, or the spirit of all. It doesn't really matter what term you use. It's like whether you call it synchronicity or luck. It doesn't matter whether you call it the universe or higher self. It's what you're doing and results that really matter. Now, let's play what if. Anybody got any ideas how you might use this? Give us some examples that might be meaningful to you.
How to use the quantum suit?
Uh-huh. How would you use this idea?
I guess by cleaning up your act and directing your thoughts.
Okay. That's how you'd get it started. But once you got it started, what might you use it for?
Improve your finances.
Okay, improve your finances. That's a good one. That's usually a pretty big one for most folks. What are some more? What if you're lonely? You know, you can be married to a wonderful person and still get so busy, the two of you. You know, you just don't pay much attention to each other anymore, and there's this little loneliness between you. It doesn't have to be that way, but it doesn't have to be hard work to change it either. You can attract to you little events, little changes here and there that just make you notice each other more frequently, appreciate each other more frequently. Say your family has scattered all over. I've got a daughter in Hawaii, a daughter in England, and I've got a daughter in foreign country over in Texas. My mom lives in Kansas. An aunt lives in Georgia. Another aunt lives in Texas. My family's scattered. Or sometimes the family gets emotionally divided. They may live close together, but they hardly speak to each other. Instead of confronting people, your family, face to face, why not just start believing, like your son-in-law believes in easy parking spaces? Just believing. You can enjoy each other. You can communicate freely and openly. And the emotion of enjoying it, just have the emotion. And start having lucky things happen. The possibilities are endless, aren't they? Now notice I said the possibilities and not the probabilities. What's the difference? What would you say the difference is? The possibilities are endless or the probabilities are endless?
Possibilities are possible. Probabilities may or may not.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Probabilities are based on what you expect to happen because it happened yesterday. Possibilities, man, that is wide open. It's possible. And there's no prediction involved. It's just you can imagine anything. And it's that wide open. So we're talking about the keys to real success in anything. Success that the universe supports. Success that is willingly brought to you. It's not something you battle and labor and scrape and scrabble and work and have to wrestle away from life. My father was a very energetic man. He built a very successful plumbing shop in Chicago. But man, he could not keep good health. Everything was a constant battle and a wrestling match. But not everybody has to do it that way. You don't really have to fight for everything you get unless you believe you do. So remember, we said observing an event or an experiment connects the experimenter with the results. His choice actually helps to determine the results of the experiment. Well, what if you started treating life like an experiment? Just a neat thing that's happening. You're imagining results, and that's the same thing as observing results. But you're observing forward in time. Now, of course, we know you can't do time travel, but another outgrowth of this quantum physics stuff, mathematicians now say there is no time. Well, it's not really a surprise because mystics have been saying this for, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years. There is no time. There's only one eternal now. Everything is connected. From the quantum soup point of view, this is true. Everything is connected. You can dip into that soup and ladle out any set of events you want. You can even choose not to have to struggle. But the dipping is done with your imagination. Imagination is just another word for intuition, by the way. Literally, anything is within your reach. You can craft your own destiny, whether you know it or not. You can do it. In fact, you do craft your own destiny, whether you know it or not. We learn our model of reality from the society around us. You know, our parents, our teachers, they told us, okay, here's how everything works. And they told us the best they knew how. But what if they were wrong about some things? Well, my parents gave me the absolute best they had, but you know, there were a lot of things they were wrong about. They did tell us wrong. Our parents told us a lot of things that were wrong. In some things, they told us way wrong because they just didn't know. They only repeated what they had heard. You know, you hear something over and over and over again. Soon you get the idea, okay, this is true. It just soaks in so deep, especially if you start at a very early age. You ever watch Star Trek? Anybody?
Long time ago.
Long time ago. You remember hyperspace?
Yep.
Is everybody familiar with the term hyperspace, where you can travel faster than light? It's a made-up, a fantasy thing, which may or may not ever end up to be true. But in hyperspace, if our sun is 4 light years away from Alpha Centauri, then it would take at least 4 years traveling at the speed of light to get to Alpha Centauri. Well, hyperspace is this made-up idea that you can travel faster than light. In hyperspace, well, let's back up. Let's take a piece of paper, just a plain old piece of typewriter paper. Up in the upper right-hand corner, let's draw a dot, and then in the lower left-hand corner, we draw another dot. You know, we learned way back in high school that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. To get from dot A to dot B, you just go down the page diagonally in a straight line, and you get there. You measure that, and it's, maybe, 11, 12 inches maybe. But what if you're just assuming the rules say you have to go on a straight line, and what if you're assuming that the paper has to stay flat? What if you fold the paper so that the 2 dots are touching each other? Now how far is it from point A to point B? There's no distance at all. It's just, whoop, you're there. And that's hyperspace. Well, our higher minds are in hyperspace. Quantum soup is the hyperspace of events. Everything is right next to everything else. All events are connected. They're all sitting there, each one right next to the next one. So there are no great separations, if you so choose. You can bend the paper, if you so choose. So there are no long paths, if you so choose, because your choosing makes it so. In quantum soup, if you're sick today, the next moment you could be healthy. And from time to time, once in a while, somebody goes to Lourdes, and this happens. They're sick, suddenly they're well. They're healthy. We say a miracle has happened. It's this hyperspace of quantum soup. If you're poor, the next moment you could be wealthy. I read a couple of years ago, a lady in New Jersey, I think it was, bought one solitary lottery ticket. She never bought lottery tickets, but she bought one just on a whim. One day they called her and said, "You've won $340 million. Boom, hyperspace. If you're lonely and depressed, the next moment you could walk around a corner and run into somebody, bump into them, and they're Mr. Right or Ms. Right. Happens in movies all the time, but how often does it happen in our lives? Well, it could happen all the time if you
Or
so
things may change. Things may change dramatically, and we just don't remember the past.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that can happen too, absolutely. But you know, we treat this as fantasy. Oh, that only happens in science fiction movies, or that only happens in romantic movies. Well, it's not fantasy. It's just a different logic. Totally different logic. This logic says the paper doesn't have to stay flat. You can fold it and put the dots right next to each other. You can get there with one tiny little step. And if you follow this type of logic, the model I'm describing means exactly these things. You're already rich right now.
Well, you're saying that potentially you can wake up tomorrow morning 20 years younger?
Potentially. Now, Francis Bacon, I think about 300 years ago, wrote, everything is possible, but not everything is allowed. What he didn't say is who's doing the allowing. We know that there are people who've been sickly all their life, and then they have a change, and they become vastly more healthy. We do know that some people age rapidly and look really old. Other people don't age rapidly, and they look young and stay healthy. Here in Japan, I walk up and down the beach every day. There's some guys out there walking. I'm 60 now, and I do this for my heart and my health. There's some guys out there that look really old. Found out one of them's 58. There's another guy who looks younger than me. I found out the other day he's 72. Is this not just a slight variation of that waking up 20 years younger tomorrow? Now, we still have to work out the matter of believing, expecting. That's what we have to work on, not getting it to happen, but getting it to happen in our mind, our belief, expecting the parking spot to show up. So that's a good question, absolutely.
I want to bring another point, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I see two different approaches. One is to believe that you are lucky with a parking spot, and that you're lucky with money, and you're lucky with health, and you can build a very big list, and you always discover that you forgot something. The other approach I see is to believe something which is primordial and covers everything, and if you really believe that, everything else will fall in sync, and you don't have to be following any list. Everything will fall in place at the right time.
Yeah. When you internalize it so completely that you don't have to remind yourself anymore, then yes, it's primordial. It's down in your cells. It's in your gut. It's just part of you. That's the ideal. That's what we're working toward. And theoretically, we could get there in an instant. We're still working against our expectations, so we remind ourselves, and we work on it a little every day. We could just go straight there. That's potentially possible. For most of us, we won't, just purely because our beliefs change slowly. But yes, that's true. Anyway, let's get back to what we can actually do with this. What's good luck? What's bad luck? Have you ever noticed the definition of luck is very close to our definition of good and evil? An event that's helpful or convenient, we call that good or good luck. Events that we like are good. People that are helpful to us are good. And any event that's harmful or inconvenient or hurts us or our family, that's bad luck or that's evil. Events we don't like are bad. So we have a personal connection with what we call good luck and bad luck. Let's take two friends on a snowy day. Maybe you've heard me use this example before. Fred and Joe are standing at work. It's almost quitting time, and it's been snowing all afternoon. Snowing like a son of a gun. It's really coming down. Fred says, "Oh, man, this is going to really make it hard getting home. It's going to be wrecks everywhere. And I bet we don't even get to work tomorrow." Joe beside him says, "Yeah, I think I'm going to put the chains on my 4x4 and I'm going to go out and pull people out of ditches. Man, I'm going to be rich by tomorrow. I think tomorrow I'll take off and go skiing." Now, was that snowy day a lucky event or was it an unlucky event? What do you think?
Both.
It was both. Right. It was just an event. Stuff just happens. Whether it's good or bad depends on our judgment, the way we choose to relate to it. Our judgments are based on our perceptions. These are our self-centered perceptions, by the way. What does this event mean to me? Is it inconvenient to me? Is it inconvenient to the people who matter to me? Or is it good for us? So yeah, it's both. That's what I mean when I say that luck often comes in disguise. There's more to perceive in any event. Lots more. One person's problem is another person's opportunity. Maybe they're riches. You know, when a friend of mine, the guy who introduced me to Japan, when he first came here in '62, he came as a judo guy. He had saved up enough money to stay here 2 months. Well, he looked around and he thought, I'd like to stay here longer and study more judo. And he noticed that it was almost exclusively Japanese people translating into English. And when they do that, the English ends up sounding kind of funny. So he started going around to the translation agencies saying, hey, I can rewrite the English, make it sound better. He found a problem, and it was good for him. He started making a lot of money. He made around $120,000 a year just changing translations. Years ago, I was a camera repairman. People had problems. Their cameras would stop working. That was good for me. I made money. Another piece of bad luck, people get sick. So there are doctors who benefit from that, drug companies, hospitals, flower shops, card publishers. Bad luck is good luck, depending on which side of it you choose to stand. You find people with problems, and you can get rich. And if problems can make you rich, what makes an event good or bad? Nothing but perception and perspective, just a different way of seeing things. You know, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, actually, I wonder about that. You may think one person is beautiful. I think another is beautiful. You may think one painting is beautiful. I think it's awful. It's really perception is in the eye of the beholder. And perception is behind the eye. It's in the mind. We nearly always see what we expect to see in an event. If there's somebody I don't like, anything they say is going to irritate me because I expect it to. Now let me ask you a question. This is just a quick little aside. Let's say there's an airliner. It's got 350 people or so on it, and it crashes exactly on the border between Peru and Ecuador, right on the line, up in the mountains, very remote. More than half the passengers die, and it takes, more than 2 weeks for the rescue teams to come up there and get the people down. The air currents are so tricky they can't use helicopters. Now, just out of curiosity, what do you think? On which side of the border will they bury the survivors? Peru or Ecuador?
On what side of the border what?
On which side of the border will they bury the survivors? In Peru or in Ecuador?
The survivors are alive, right?
Okay, did anybody else catch that?
No.
Okay, now there's a trick question. Most of life is a trick question. That's a very good response. There's another one. This one got me many years ago when I read this. Exactly. Now we know that the animals went on the ark 2 by 2. But exactly how many animals did Moses take on the ark during the Great Flood?
How many animals he took on the ark during the Great Flood?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it wasn't Moses.
Oh, right.
It was Noah.
It was Noah.
Okay, here's another, just a quickie, just for fun. Is it illegal in Texas now, is it illegal for a man to marry his widow's sister?
Okay, I got that one. Third time's the charm. I got that one.
Okay. If the man has a widow, the man is dead. And yes, it's illegal to marry the widow's sister. Trick questions. Well, a lot of things in life, the way we have learned to perceive them and believe in them, a lot of things in life are trick questions. And here's why. Way back, something like 400 and some years ago, Magellan was sailing all the way around the earth. And when his ships pulled into the harbor in one of the islands in the Pacific, they rowed ashore, and the native people there greeted them, and they had a great feast and everything. But eventually, the people started asking, "Where'd you come from?" And with the sign language and so forth, it was a little hard to communicate. But they pointed out into the harbor and said, "We came on those ships." And the people looked out in the harbor and said, "What ships?" They could not see those ships. They were so far outside their range of experience. And finally, the village shaman told everybody, "Now, if you look out across the bay, you'll see something out there that looks sort of like clouds. And if you look out there, you'll see something under those clouds that looks sort of like a canoe, but very large." "Oh, yeah. Yeah." Then they could start to see it. They could not see it because it was just so far outside their range of experience. There's a part of the brain that does that. Maybe you've heard of the reticular activating system, RAS, at the base of the brain. It's a filter. There are billions of particles of information that come in through our senses in the course of a day. Filter at the base of our skull, this reticular activating system, sorts out the stuff that's appropriate and important to us and lets it through. Everything else it discards and filters it out. Well, it's possible to begin seeing more of what's around you, more of this quantum soup. And the way to do it is by using your imagination, your intuition. You start by imagining more. Just as this village shaman showed them how to imagine, see, there's something out there that looks sort of like clouds. And you start by building bridges between what you know to what you don't know yet. Gary Craig, who does the EFT seminars, when he was a kid, he was a baseball star in high school. And it was because he had this passion for it. When he wasn't playing baseball, he was imagining playing baseball. And in his imagination, he would do these amazing diving catches. And there was this one in particular. He played, I think, shortstop. It was the bottom of the 9th inning. And he imagined the batter coming up and hitting a line drive just inside the line toward the third baseman. The third baseman missed it, but Gary runs over and does this amazing diving catch. Comes up with the ball, and they win the ball game. In his imagination, Gary does this diving catch and saves the ball game. Well, in the championships, exactly that happened. The bases are loaded, it's the bottom of the 9th inning, and their power hitter for the other team comes up. He hits a line drive exactly where Gary had been imagining it, and he missed the ball. Fortunately, there's a technicality, and they have to make the play again. The same thing happens again. The power hitter, the bases are loaded. He hits the baseball, line drive straight out along third baseline. This time, Gary makes the catch, exactly as he imagined it. Now, is that spooky or what?
He got a second chance, huh?
Yeah, he not only imagined it happening, he got a second chance to play it when it didn't work exactly like it should have. Now, this is weird stuff, but it's possible. Edwin C. Barnes decided that he wanted to go into partnership with Thomas Edison. If you've read Think and Grow Rich, you know this story. He didn't have the money. He was a tramp. He was broke. He was penniless. But he rode the rails, you know, those rods underneath a boxcar, to meet Edison. He came in the front door. He was dirty. He was ragged. He was broke. But he came and told him, "I came to go into business with you." Took him 5 years, but he did it. Edison invented a machine that nobody seemed able to sell. But Edwin Barnes sold it. He said, "I can do that." And he did. He put the dictaphone machine on the map. And he became a partner with Thomas Edison. So we get what we think about, if we think about it. And sometimes it's very mysterious ways, seemingly without any connection, or just the barest connection. Except you and I know that there is a connection through the hyperspace of our higher mind. So luck, a lot of times, goes around in disguise. Well, what about other disguises that luck uses? For example, there are our daydreams and our fantasies. We daydream about something like Gary Craig did, that diving catch, and wow, it happens. Our fantasies. What are other things that we daydream about? For example, you may daydream about someday going on a cruise. What are other things?
Getting that dream job.
Getting that dream job, yes. What about a fine home?
Going on a great trip.
Great trip, or luxury cars, or very expensive services. What about gambling? Winning at poker all the time. Some people are, they're winners.
That's true. There are some people that seem to be able to make the dice go their way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, they win a lot more than they lose. And there's no logical explanation for it unless you understand the hyperspace of choosing. Now, I don't understand gambling. When I was 12 years old, I sat down to play poker with some friends, and we played a lot of poker. I knew the rules, and I knew how to play. But somebody said, hey, let's play penny ante. Yeah, let's do. We'd seen our dads do that. So I lost my last 37 cents. And that cured me of gambling. I have never understood why you should sit down at a table and some colored cards would force me to give my money away to somebody else. I didn't understand that. I still don't. But some people are good at gambling and they love it. My only question is this a win-win situation? In some ways it is. You get the excitement of sitting there and facing chance head on. But anyway, these are ways that we can run into luck in our daily life. Well, what about finding luck in bad times? What are bad times? Anybody have any idea?
Illness, loss of job.
Exactly. Maybe the economy is going downhill.
Maybe you're just worried about losing your job.
Maybe you're worried about losing your job because other people are. People are getting downsized. Or you can't pay your bills. I've been there. Or you have an illness and you just can't seem to shake it. Or a family member dies. It's not just financially rocky, but things can be emotionally rough, too. So when times get bad like that, how do you find good in bad times?
Yeah, how?
Well, let's take a look at that. It's possible to get hypnotized by what we think is reality. It's like a bird will stand perfectly still in front of a snake. Their instinct says if I don't move, a predator can't see me. But a snake can see heat. Doesn't have to move. And that's the way we sometimes get in bad times. We'll be so obsessed with how bad things are that it's like me driving that car and thinking safety, but boy, my guts were all tied up in thinking scared. And that happens. Bad events and bad times tend to do that to us. So how do you break free? It's, again, our intuition and our imagination. If problems are really opportunities, like when people get sick, doctors make money, hospitals make money. If somebody can't hold paper together and they're always getting scattered in an office, somebody invents paper clips and gets rich. Problems are opportunities. But if bad times bring more problems, and problems really are opportunities, then what does that mean? It means we're missing the whole point of bad times. We've heard it over and over. We get exactly what we think about. What we feed our energy to is going to grow. Did anybody ever see the movie or the play, The Little Shop of Horrors? The whole story is a spaceship lands, and a guy who runs a little flower shop finds this cute little plant. And he brings it in, sets it in his shop, and he accidentally pricks his finger on one of the thorns of it, and it eats the blood from his pricked finger. He thinks the plant is cute, but every day the plant continues to wither, and so he keeps giving the thing a drop of blood, and it starts to grow. And it grows. And it needs more blood. And it needs more blood. Well, our fears are like that alien plant in the play, and that plant is our negative thought. And it becomes our reality. It gets bigger and bigger. And it begins to take over. And it demands more and more of our attention. And we're hypnotized by it. Most of the time, our thinking is on automatic. That's just the way it is. We don't know what we're thinking about most of the time. We're so busy going about our business that we don't pay too much attention to our feelings and our emotions and what we're actually thinking. Do you ever worry about things? Is there something that you have worried about maybe off and on for a few weeks? Or do you have an argument with somebody and you replay it over and over, maybe adjusting your side of the argument a little bit every time? Or do you ever imagine what somebody might say or they might do, and you just get angry just thinking about it? You're actually feeding energy to something that's negative. You could be feeding your energy to something that is positive. You could imagine a happy outcome or an apology coming to you. You could imagine good things happening. But a lot of times we don't. It's just a habit we get into. So our reality is created from those thoughts, even if we're not paying attention. Now, we know about affirmations. We know about imagining the future. And so we sit down and we do imagine good things. Maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes. Then we get up and we go back to worrying for the whole rest of the day. There are 8 ways that we can avoid getting good results. One of them is worrying and doubting. We just discussed this. Another, the second one, is forcing things. My way or no way. Well, people all around you also get a vote. And if you're trying to demand something that will change other people's lives, they may outvote you. The third way is what I call techniquing. You spend most of your time reading and seeking the one true method, and you're always jumping from one technique to another. The fourth way to avoid getting good results is what I call pogo sticking. You're jumping from one goal to another. Today it's $10,000. Tomorrow it's a Bahamas vacation. The next day I don't have to work. I'm just retiring. So we need to look at continuity. The fifth way to avoid getting good results is what I call lukewarming. You may be whispering your commands to the universe when you should be enthusiastic and vitally alive about them and really cranked up about what you want.
I have a question at this point. Do you mind? I have heard radically different approaches that sometimes confuse me. One of them is what you just mentioned, expressing what you want. Mm-hmm. Another radically different approach is the one portrayed by Lester Levinson in the Sedona method, where he states that anytime you want something, you are actually expressing lack of what you are wanting. That's what you wanted, and that's an affirmation of not having it. Mm-hmm. So he advises to let go of your wants in order to paradoxically get what you want or get what you are lacking. So that confuses me a lot of times and puts me in a situation of thinking, well, should I really pursue this that I want, or I'm doing a mistake? I should really release the wanting in order to get it.
Okay, a lot of this, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've gone through this, and it's confusing. But a lot of this is semantics. There are a lot of different teachers, and each one has a different way of explaining and expressing things. They use different illustrations and definitions. But basically, they're saying the same thing, but it may not seem like it at first. The way to turn loose of your wants is to realize that if there's no time, you already have what you want. You already have it, so you don't have to sit there wanting it. You can just go ahead and be thankful and enjoy that you have it, and it'll just show up. Now, I know that Christmas is coming. It's a long way away. And I know that my wife will get me a Christmas present. And I feel good about that. I don't have to sit here and want her to get me a Christmas present. So I think that's what he's talking about, turning loose of your want and just go straight to the accepting. In your mind, it's already yours. In your mind, you've already accepted it, and you can enjoy having it, even if it's not in your physical hands yet. We'll get back to that in a little bit. But that was a biggie for me for a long time.
And I understand that part. What I don't understand is the other part, the other approach, which is desiring and taking something as a goal and visualizing it, otherwise you're not going to get it. Mm-hmm. So the assumption is if you don't do the visualization and the desiring, then you're never to get it.
Yeah. Some of this has to do with the individual person. Now, some people have a strong sense of entitlement. And so they can go straight from, I desire this, to I deserve this, to I will have this. And then they can just drop it and go on. It's in the works now. But some people don't have that strong sense of deserving. In fact, they may be just the opposite. They feel like, I don't know if I deserve this or not. You know, they don't have that strong sense of personal entitlement. And so they may have to work at it a little harder. In my book, I talk about using mental hands. You reach out in your mind and you grab what you want and you pull it to you. You visualize this in your mind. You pull it to you and you hold it close to you. And every time you think about it during the day, you just remember that you're holding it with your imaginary hands right to you, right at your heart. This is just simply to help overcome our habit of not deserving things. For example, when I was young, I was taught that you must be modest and unselfish. And to me, my personal interpretation of that was, I must not have anything good. Because if I received too much good stuff, then obviously I was selfish, and I was thinking I was better than other people. It's funny how we get these weird ideas, you know, when we're growing up. I got a bunch of them when I was growing up. So I was one of those people who had to really, really work on reminding myself regularly what I wanted, it was okay, and I was going to get it. And my biggest problem was overcoming this feeling that I should not have it. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The fifth one was lukewarming, where you're not really putting much energy or enthusiasm into your requests or your affirmations. The sixth one is adoption, where you are not sure what you want, and instead of going looking for what you want, you look around and you hear somebody say, well, I want a big house. So you say, okay, I want a big house now. And it's not really yours. You've just adopted it. These probably won't come to pass. Or if they do, you won't really be particularly impressed with them one way or the other. The seventh one is very similar. It's what I call vaguing, being vague. There's no real clarity. I want a perfect job. What's a perfect job? Oh, I don't know. Just I want to be happy with my work. Well, that's very vague. It's just not clear. And the eighth way to not get what you want is what I call part-timing or alternate Fridaying. You may do your affirmations just great today and a lot of enthusiasm. And then you just sort of forget about it for a week, and maybe 10, 12 days later, oh yeah, I need to do my affirmations. So you do it again. Lots of enthusiasm. This is going to delay things too. In contrast, here are 8 ways to get great results from your inner work. Number 1, keep it warm. Call it keep it warm because in the way I describe it, you reach out with those mental hands. You grab what you want. You pull it to you. You hold it to your heart where it's nice and warm. You keep it close. And the second way to get great results is to keep it light. Don't struggle with it. Let it be easy. These are ideas. They don't have any weight. They don't have any mass. A concept in your mind is weightless. So let it be weightless. And just keep it light. Also keep it alive. Instead of having a rigid, dead picture, have moving pictures. If, say, you want $10,000, instead of visualizing a stack of $10,000, see your hands riffling through the money. See you enjoying the money. See you spending the money for what you want or investing the way you want. Make it alive and moving. And then the fourth way is to keep it steady. Do this every day or twice a day. If you find that repeating your affirmations or your visualizations If you find that it works better for you doing it every day, then do it every day. Keep at it steadily. If you find that it's better for you to do it once and then release it, then the way to keep it steady is to just continue to be thankful that it's coming. Now, keep it heartfelt is number 5. Really put some enthusiasm and some energy into it. This is something that really means something to you. If it's not, then it's not really a goal. It's just, it's a nice to have. Work on things that really mean something to you so that it can be heartfelt with lots of enthusiasm and feel good. Number 6 is keep it yours. Instead of adopting things, spend the extra time to figure out what's important to you. It's okay if you don't settle on your goal for a day or 2 or 3. It's okay if it takes you a week or 2 to figure out what you really want in your life. But make sure it's yours, not somebody else's. Now, you can take somebody else's idea and recognize, yeah, I'd like that too. Or you can take somebody else's idea and say, yeah, that's nice, but it's not important to me. Just make sure it's yours. The 7th one is keep it sharply in focus. When you think about it, make sure your image of it is pretty clear. Now, some people think in images. For them, this is easy. I tend to be an auditory person. I tend to think in terms of sounds and words. So a lot of times what I'll do is do just a little mental description in words. To me, that helps keep it sharply in focus. And the 8th one is keep it regular. Just keep at it. That's very similar to number 4, keep it steady. The last factor to keep in mind is when you first move into new territory, it's going to feel alien. Now, if you're not a millionaire now and you start thinking about being a millionaire, that means more than just money. It means your whole life's going to change. The people around you are going to behave differently. The people around you are going to, probably some of them will be entirely new people. Financial planners and managers, investment managers, property managers, employees, people working in your home. Whatever reinforces and goes with that picture, think bigger, because it's going to be really strange if you don't think about it before you get there. In fact, it'll feel so alien that when you think about it, it takes you outside your circle of comfort. You know, we say we have a comfort zone. Now, some of us are not so comfortable in that comfort zone. Otherwise, we wouldn't want more. My comfort zone, financially, may or may not be comfortable. Your comfort zone, emotionally, may or may not be comfortable. So I don't call it a comfort zone. I call it a familiar zone. Everything you don't have, everything you want to have, is out there. It's outside your comfort zone. Now, the things you already have, you may like them or you may not like them, but there they are in your familiar zone. But everything you don't have that you want, it's outside the line. And when you step over the line, your own mind will try to pressure you back inside the line. Maybe you go apply for a new job, and it's a job you've never done before. It requires some new skills. I've changed careers a lot of times in my life, stepped over that line a lot of times, and I'm familiar with how nervous you can be and how uncomfortable. But when you do step over the line and you get nervous or scared or irritable or grouchy or however you react to it, this is your ego. Your ego is trying to put you back inside the comfort zone, your familiar zone. Because your ego is just a caretaker. He's been told, okay, keep everything stable and steady. That's his job. He's just a watchman or a guard dog. Your ego is just doing the job you've asked it to do. You've told it, okay, this is who I am. This is what I am. Now keep me this way. So if we step into new territory, which is what we're going to have to do, then the ego's job is to say, hey, you're outside now. What are some of the ways your ego may stop you? My own personal way is, man, I don't have time for this. I'm too busy for this. This kind of an irritated feeling. Anybody ever get something like that?
Yeah, all the time.
That's the ego. That's your caretaker. He's reminding you that you're doing something unfamiliar. Some people experience fear. It may be impatience. You may feel tired, Oh, man, I'm so tired. Or sleepy. I just dead sleepy now all of a sudden. I don't understand it. Or you may tackle a new project and you suddenly feel like, I just don't understand this. I'm so confused. Or you may get into it and your mind starts wandering. You just can't really concentrate on it. Or you may get into it and decide, well, I don't know. There's something else I'd really like to try now. And you keep jumping from one thing to another. This pogo sticking. But however it is, it's your ego trying to sidetrack you from that unfamiliar territory. If it's only the ego doing its job and it's nothing personal, then you don't really have to be intimidated. All you have to do is learn what the ego's typical strategies are, and when they happen, you can just look ego right in the eye and say, okay, thanks for doing your job, but now I'm going to go do this. This is something new, and you're going to be watching over that soon. But it is possible to work with your ego instead of having to battle against it. And the main thing is just learning to be aware of what's happening. One way to do this is just to use centering. Anybody ever do a little centering routine, like a little meditation every day?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Another way to neutralize the power of your ego when he does that is to imagine that you already have your goal. Now, what this is doing is you're moving outside your comfort zone or your familiar zone in a non-threatening way. You're only thinking about it. You're just imagining it. It's not real yet, so you don't have to get excited. I'm just thinking about it. Now, you imagine your new goal often enough, and it becomes familiar. And when you actually go get the real thing, your ego knows it, he recognizes it, and doesn't have to get excited. This is the idea of doing visualizing. Another way is when you get upset feelings or irritation or fear, just do some EFT tapping. That can take away the intensity also. The main thing is just be aware and have a strategy for dealing with it so that you can just keep on your goal. Another way is to give your ego a name. One guy calls his ego Bobby Ego. When he gets these little resistance signs, he says, okay, Bobby, I understand that you're doing your job, but now I've got a job to do, and I want you to step aside for a moment and let me do my job. Again, it's just a matter of being conscious of what you're doing. My ego is named Shep. He's my watchdog. He's a pretty good watchdog, but I can't let him run my life for me. He's just a watchdog. And so it helps to remind me of that by giving him the name Shep. I can assure you that if you do these things, more and more synchronistic things will begin coming to you. Will it change your life overnight? If you so choose. But more than likely, you'll begin changing one tiny little thing overnight, and then another tiny little thing overnight. And you'll begin to build up a little momentum. This is the typical way it happens. In any case, whatever you do, just honor and respect yourself. The things that are happening, it's just your mind doing the job you've given it to do. And if you honor and respect that, it will cooperate with you instead of fighting you. And all you have to do is accept the truth that you are the one making every detail of your life. You always have, ever since you left childhood. When you were a baby, your reality was mostly shaped by your parents and those around you. But after you left childhood, you took over responsibility. And now you're the one making every detail of your life. And if you'll accept that it's all yours to change any way you wish, all you have to do is just take back command of your own watchman, and soon he'll be guarding your new reality just as carefully and just as zealously as he guarded the old reality. And the good luck, the success, the happiness, they will come, just one little piece at a time, just like building any kind of structure. It doesn't spring into existence overnight. The easy way is just do it one piece at a time. and I sincerely wish each of you all the best of luck for the entire rest of your life, and it will come if you so choose.